Welcome, everybody, to On the Table here on the Tabletop Express. My name is Chris Barrows. I'm here with Brian Chandler, who you most recently saw on the channel for his top 20 list, I believe. Definitely worth checking out. And joined by a returning Jamey Stegmaier. Jamey, last time you were here was, I think, only the second or third video we did on the channel. So it's been a long time. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah, this is great. And like we mentioned right before we went live, I've emailed a lot with Brian, but I've never actually gotten to talk to him face to face. And so I was looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is great. Hi, Jamey.
I did think that was funny because I didn't realize that before. For those who are new to On the Table, I just want to give a FYI about what this is all about. We're here to talk about games we've played in this past month, March or even this month, April. And we invite you to share that in the comments if you do join us live or after the fact. We like to celebrate the playing of games, and that's what this is all about. We do, of course, like to bring in our guests as well. Jamey, before we get into your first game, which I know is Viticulture World, I just wanted to make sure we brought up some of the more recent happenings because I think it's important. We had a video that went out, a really incredible video that Thinker Themer channel did, and it was impactful. And I know we felt that across the internet, right? And you have responded since with some changes to the game. So I want to make sure, because actually cultural awareness is obviously very important. It's very important to our channel. I know it's important to you. I was hoping that as part of this, we could also kind of speak a little bit to some of the changes that did get made. And I know this is only like the past week, so this is very fresh, but I want to make sure we brought that up front and center before we got started and dug, deep into the game.
Yeah, a very quick recap of it is that when Amy and Maggie at Thinker Themer got their advanced review copy of Viticulture World, and really maybe a few games into it, they got to South America. And when they did, they had a really negative experience involving how there are two conquistadors amongst the characters that players can work together. They can basically get a little winemaking bonus from these conquistadors. Maggie is originally from South America. She had a very negative and a very justified negative reaction, I think, to seeing the conquistadors portrayed the way they were in the game. And they contacted me. We talked about it. We had some emails. We had a good face-to-face, heart-to-heart talk about it. And the solution that we are in the process of implementing. This is a few weeks into this point. So I just wanted to recap that a little bit, that it didn't happen like after they posted the video. A lot of this happened up front. And then we kind of worked together to figure out when I wanted them to speak their truth. And we found a date that we thought was appropriate for a lot of people to hear that. So we didn't want to like push it off until after the game was released or something. We thought it would be really important to be upfront and center about it. And so we are replacing the two conquistador cards with mechanically identical cards featuring people who were not wiping out civilizations in South America. So much still, I think for any historical figure, there are good and bad aspects to those people, like all of us human beings. But conquistadors are kind of the extreme end of the terrible people spectrum. And so, and one of the unique things today is that Brian is here. Brian is a member of our proofreading and oversight team. And I think one of the reasons that this is a unique situation is that this was an instance of a lot of people, myself, everyone on the proofreading team, our cultural consultant, our playtesters, everyone was actively looking for this type of thing. And even though I think many of us, Brian, I'll let you speak in a second so you can speak to this. Even though many of us were acknowledged the problematic nature of the conquistadors, the solution we implemented was to put a disclaimer about them in the cards instead of just removing them. But I can't remember any of us, including, it comes down to me, my responsibility, actually thinking, oh, why don't we just remove them? And so I thought it was just a really unique situation that we acknowledged that there was a problem. We put a solution in place and it just wasn't the right solution. Brad, do you have any thoughts? I know it was a while ago that you proofread this, but yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think would just add that I did. It's one, I think that, Jamey, you've definitely been the face of this story, over the last week, and rightly so. It's your company, right? You made the final decisions on everything that's inside that box. Yeah. And I think it's important to know when you look in the rules and on the box, you're going to see a whole bunch of names on that box, including mine, of a lot of people who did look at this game. I looked at those cards several times, and it never even, frankly, really crossed my mind. Embarrassingly so, right? As somebody who I do care about diversity, equity, inclusion, And this topic of colonization and isn't new, right, to the gaming discussion, especially in the last maybe 5 to 6 years or so. So yeah, the fact that it missed all of us. I was remembering Jamey. So I'm a freelance proofreader for Stonemaier Games and others, and we have a tab in the proofreader thing that says things we all missed. And every once in a while, there's a little we missed a page number on the rule book, or we missed something that somehow got all the way through the multiple levels of proofreading that have gone on over the last several weeks, or usually months, if not more. So this obviously is a pretty big one, right? And so I definitely feel complicit in and a part of the team who didn't catch this. And frankly, I'm proud that the decision was made and that you guys have taken on the effort and the cost and all the work that it takes to do what you've done to make this change, even before anybody gets the game. No one's going to get a game besides these pre-review copies to reviewers that doesn't have the new cards in it. And the recommendation even, or as you mentioned last week, to just remove the other cards, to not even make part of the game anymore.
And I hope it's clear, Brian, I appreciate you saying that. I hope it's clear in my post about it and the way that I've talked about it, that the responsibility really is mine. I am not passing it on to the proofreading team, to the playtesters or the cultural consultant. I think it's interesting that all of us were actively looking for it, and yet we missed that solution. But I really want people to know I've reread my own article many times. I've even revised that article a little bit to try to make it more and more clear that it, like, in the end, a proofreader just makes suggestions. I am the one who actually implements those suggestions and decides what I think is the best solution for the game. So yeah, I'm glad for the opportunity to fix it. Thanks to Amy and Maggie and to everyone who was involved. And I wish I had made implemented the right solution in the first place.
And I want to thank you both for speaking to it again. It's just obviously a very important topic. It was one that obviously cannot be ignored. And so I just wanted to bring it up at the top. And I do want to learn about the game, obviously, well. So I'd love to hear, obviously, a little bit more. Obviously, you've been playing this, Jamey, and this is an expansion, obviously, to a game that people very much enjoy. Viticulture, arguably, I don't know what the popularity and sales or anything is on Stonemaier Games, but Viticulture's got to be up there, I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's our third best-selling game, and this is it was kind of a fun experiment. I wanted to try the Orleans Invasion style of creating a cooperative expansion for a competitive game. And I like the images that you've shown up here. One of the cool things that you can see in one of the images is that players can work together to improve actions throughout the course of the game. So there are tiles that you place on the board, both rectangular tiles and oval tiles, that improve the action spaces and improve the actions themselves, which I think is a really cool cooperative mechanism for the designers to put in the game, because you're helping out all the players in the game by improving these action spaces. And you're playing through the spirit of the game is that you're playing in different regions of the world. And so instead of playing in Tuscany like you do in Viticulture, you can play in Europe. And when you do so, you learn a little bit about European history as you're playing through different events that have happened in European history related to winemaking. Or you can play in South America, like we mentioned, Asia. You can play in every continent except for Antarctica, because they don't have winemaking there that I am aware of. And so we substituted in Green Gully, a made-up continent from our game Charterstone, as kind of an introductory continent to the game.
I do have one question on this, which is, one of the descriptions was the cooperation objectives in asymmetry in this expansion are similar to that of Spirit Island and Orleans Invasion. Where do you see those similarities then in this? Because obviously those are two very popular games out there, and very unique games. In particular, Spirit Island, I feel like is a really unique perspective, just as a game in itself. I've only played it solo myself.
Yeah, I mean, the comparison to Orleans Invasion is the default of Orleans is a competitive medium weight Euro game. Viticulture is also a competitive medium weight Euro game, and you're adding this cooperative element where you suddenly have to work together, but you're still kind of running your own vineyard, because each player needs to. They have complete control over their own vineyard and their own workers and their own cards, and each player needs to reach 25 victory points, or no players win. The group wins or loses together in that way. There's also a common goal, this influence track that all players are that players are working together to move up on. For Spirit Island has the thing where you are kind of competing against different nations that are coming to the island. And while there is not like an antagonistic force in Viticulture World, you have these different continents that completely change the shape of the game. They're very different event decks. They give you very different, mostly bonuses. Like it's still a rewarding game. It's not a punishing cooperative game. It's more of a difficult, increasingly difficult puzzle to solve. And I keep thinking about Spirit Island in terms of that comparison. That you have these different nations that you're, in this case, it's the continents that you're competing, working to create a vineyard on instead of competing against in Spirit Island.
Got it.
And Jamey, in some cases, I'm remembering too, there's almost kind of in the way that Tuscany kind of has that area control mini game, in the bottom left corner of the board, that I remember at least one of these countries also, or continents also has kind of like another thing happening on the side. Are there any of those that are worth kind of describing or talking about?
Yeah, one that comes to mind, a lot of them have that. Like they don't just have an event card deck, they have another set of cards that you look at. And in North America is one of my favorites, because in North America, you create this little, this fame track spread out over 3 different cards that form this kind of crossing interwoven path. It looks a little bit like a miniature version of the Clank board, where you're moving your workers down this path and gaining bonuses as you do. And the cards in the North America deck, they give you opportunities to do certain things on the board that give you fame, and then you get to advance on this track. And that little fame track is completely unique to North America. And when you play a different continent, you put those cards away and play with a different set of cards that might have a different puzzle like that.
What's really interesting, Jamey, is you brought 2 picks today.
Yeah.
And your second pick, I actually wasn't sure, wasn't sure if it was a re-implementation or if it's technically a sequel. Oh, there is one question just to ask. Ryan asks, are continents difficult in referring to viticulture? Are the continents different difficulty levels like Invaders in Spirit Island?
They are. Yeah. They range from introductory to hard.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So this one, and you shared some really beautiful photos. I, in particular, the boats just look gorgeous right here.
They're stunning.
I'm interested in this one because I know Tokaido, gorgeous, beautiful looking game. A lot of white space in that, to say the least.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of, but the art is gorgeous on that board.
Yeah, and it's equally gorgeous, I think, in Namiji. I think they use the same artist or work with the same artist. And it's a very similar game to Tokaido, where you're kind of the core mechanism is you pick up your boat and you move it to a benefit somewhere along the track ahead of you, and it is always your turn if you are the furthest boat in the back. Which you can kind of see in the photo here. There's one, the far right ship is the one that's furthest in the back on this journey, and every now and then there's a little catch-up spot where all the players kind of stop and then you move forward again. And move as far forward as you want to get different benefits. So it's very similar to Tokaido in that way. The main difference here is that some of the mini games are different. There's a push your luck mini game involving crustaceans and shrimp. There's a little offering mini game. You're still creating panoramas like you do in Tokaido, which are really beautiful to create. And there's a really neat little fishing mini game. I think the fishing mini game might be my favorite. Yeah, so it's if someone loves Tokaido, I think they will also definitely love Namiji. I'm not entirely sure if both need to be in a collection because they both do very similar things with just different mini games. But I really enjoyed it, and I don't own Tokaido, so I'm very happy to own Namiji.
That would have been my
question.
That would have been my question. Is it worth owning both? Because they seem very similar. I guess it depends on if you try both, you might like one better than the other based on the little mini games themselves.
Have either of you played digital? I've actually only played Tokaido on iPad, not in person. I wonder, have either of you played digital implementations of that? And do we know if there's a digital implementation of Namiji?
That's a good question.
I played it on Board Game Arena. I played Tokaido on Board Game Arena, but I haven't played Namiji digitally.
I didn't know Tokaido was on Board Game Arena. Brian, add that to our list.
Yeah, we definitely should. Yeah, I've only played against AI, so yeah, it'd be fun to play against people on that.
Yeah, no. Well, this one definitely interests me. I've seen this at cons and stuff on the table. It just always grabs your attention. So, I definitely appreciate a look at that because it's interesting. No, it is definitely. It sounds like one that it might be Tokaido or this or it. But yeah, I love the ships. That's the ships. Maybe the reason I would end up with this version.
Yeah.
On that note, Brian, I know you come. We'll kind of jump through our selections. We have Jamey for probably another 5 to 10 minutes today. I want to make sure Jamey can see some of our picks. Speaking of ships, voyages. And
Yeah,
I gotta tell you, Brian, let me just make sure it's really clear. I was so excited that you put this on your list, because if you didn't, it would have been on mine.
So I'd say, especially over the last 2 years during COVID, I've spent a lot of time at home, spent a lot of time playing more solo games, and I've always liked roll and write games. And one of those would be actually, Jamey's game, Rolling Realms, has become a big part of our life in my house the last couple of years, both in its print and play, doing some of those live plays early on whenever it was. Frankly, the rules were changing every week. So I remember every week a friend of mine and I always had to check our versions to see if we had the right number before we played together, and then to be sure we had the most recent one on your next stream. Voyages, this was a big print and play hit in 2021. From Postmark Games, I believe this was maybe a $5 Kickstarter,
$5,
and probably, frankly, the best deal in gaming in 2021. It came with at least 2 maps, and I think now there are at least 3 official maps and dozens of fan created maps. They've made all of the art assets available to anyone, and there's been some really just insane. Like, there's a few. I haven't played this game as much as I'm even talking about it. I've played the 2 main maps so far. I've got the 3rd one printed, and I think I printed 1 or 2 of the fan-made maps as well. But just a really, really fun game. So the gist of the game is you are, as you can see from the line here, you're voyaging from a central location. The different maps have different general mechanisms. In this case, the story is you're trying to collect cargo, and then there's various ways to earn points. The way that the navigation of your ship works is you roll 3 dice, and one of those, make sure I get this right, one of those dice tells you the direction. So there's basically a north, south, east, west compass on the board, and with 6 different directions on the hex board. And then the other die is how many spaces you move in that direction. And then the 3rd die is this kind of duties section on the bottom there. You mark off one of those. So in kind of classic roll and write fashion, you can often get combos going among the different areas of the duty map and the cargo. You've got sailors on the right side that can become heroes. That allows you to do things like change the numbers on your dice. Again, like any good roll and write can do, allow you to sometimes change the numbers as you need to. And just a fun little implementation of I continue to be amazed, a little surprised maybe. I played a lot of roll and writes in the last few years, and the fact that we as an industry are still able to come up with some new, fun, exciting ideas is, I think, just a testament to maybe how much of a kind of a gap there was in this particular space. And at the limitation of print and play, all I need is 3 dice from my cabinet and anyone can play this game, is, I think, just fantastic. I've really been enjoying Voyages so far.
Have you played this one, Jamey, at all?
I haven't, but I'm loving hearing you guys talk about it, or hearing Brian talk about it.
It's $5.
What are your thoughts on it, Chris?
The folks who made this are great, and the community is on a Discord, and that's where all those assets dropped. It was such a neat thing to see.
Okay.
And
really cool.
There's one that's like a treasure island type thing. There's one where one of these you're fighting a kraken at one point. It's the creativity around this game has been ridiculous, and the art's gorgeous. Rory, who's one of the designers, is also the art, if I'm not mistaken. So
okay.
Yeah, I'd probably be remiss to say, as is with most a lot of print and play roll and write games, it's also colorblind friendly, which obviously matters a lot to me. This happens to be the full color version, which is colorblind friendly. They also have a low ink version, which is also really nice just for approachability, that you don't have to have a nice printer, print the thing in color and laminate it. I often choose the low ink version anyway, because it is easier for me from an accessibility standpoint to be able to see everything on the, it's just higher contrast usually because it's black and white only, or maybe black, white, and gray. And yeah, kind of a nice, they're also being sure that they make that version has to be colorblind friendly because it's in black and white, which is handy as well. So just another aspect of roll and writes that I've liked on the print and play low ink side. Those inherently are colorblind friendly. I don't have to double check before I buy.
And Jamey, I know we only got you for a little bit more. Before you go, I want to say thank you, obviously, for coming on, sharing more at the start, at the top. I'll kind of give a preview of what my game is. If you want to stick around for it, great. Other than that, I know you got a tight schedule, so I wanted to make sure we did take a moment to say thank you for being here. The game, just so you know, Jamey, on my mind right now is Vagrant Song. And I just would, if you haven't checked this out, I think we're doing, actually, it's really neat. And I just want to share this with everybody. We're actually doing a live stream of all 30 scenarios of this game on this channel. So me and Ryan Espin will be doing that. And it's just a fun ghosts on a train fighting these. They're called haints, these ghosts. And it's really different. It's definitely got a unique art to it, but it's just 3 boards. It's 1 board, but it's 3 car trains, essentially. I don't know how it evolves. I've only done 1 scenario, but I'm excited to talk a little bit more about it. But I wanted to make sure, again, that we also give you the opportunity to have anything else, if you want to add anything else today before you go, because, again, I know you had limited time today.
Well, I don't have anything else to add, but I do want to hear you talk about Vagrant Song. Maybe I'll leave right after that. I want to hear what hooked you into that first scenario.
Sure. Yeah. So Vagrant Song is a really interesting game. Kyle Rowan in particular, I found him pretty active on Twitter and engaging with us on this. And you can tell just so excited around this game. Weird Miniatures did this one. This is a game in which the basic scenario is a basic scenario. It's teaching you the basics of the game, the moving around, the icons. And you have some very basic actions that you take every single turn. You actually have these coins that you use to pick your actions, and you can double down or triple down on an action and say, well, I have 2 movement. I'm going to put 2 coins here, which gives me 4 movement. I'm going to be trying to pull and get some of these pieces that I'm going to need to, defeat these haints. I'm also going to be dealing with scenarios. So one of the scenarios in the first one was literally the haint moves from one side completely to the other side on a turn. That happens, you get a coin into the middle rounds that you can spend on these upgrades. You're always going to get 3 coins at the start of every scenario, from my understanding. As Ryan notes here, the scenarios get really creative. I know he's done farther than us. But the idea of this game of you're trying to defeat this haint who's pretty powerful, and I'm sure they get more powerful, and you're moving across the board with these characters with these unique abilities. I had that girl who has the little dog, and one of the neat things with her was I started with a card, and you get to upgrade these abilities throughout and add more. I started with a card where the dog can move 8 spaces towards her, and if it moves through the haint, it did damage. So they're all really unique. I've only seen 3 different characters, so I can't speak to all of them, but I will just tell you, from a story side of this, it's really interesting. You are reading from a book. Ryan can attest that he's played it multiple times with the first scenario and enjoyed it every time. So there's a replayability to it, despite the fact that it's scenario based, and you can tell a lot of love went into this game. So first scenario, really, it teaches you the basics, but it's interesting, and that's the key thing. A lot of intro things don't always come off as interesting. So for me, the fact that it came off as interesting, it wasn't just a bland, boring, here's how you play, and maybe you want to do another one. And that is the big thing. We put it away. We have coins going into the next round. We made our purchases, and now at the start of the next round, we've got all these different cards that now we can put on the side of our boards, and we'll decide who gets what. Obviously at that time, I believe, but it's exciting, and we can really think about our characters and their capabilities. You can see 3 characters here. I will note that I really like the standee style of these. They're very different. So it's got a unique look and feel. I think I have a thing for these checker like boards too, because I love that Time You Killed Me in particular, which has that look. Maybe I'm a sucker for it, but I called it Ghost on a Train as a joke throughout half our play. But really excited. We're going to be doing more of this. And so I encourage people to check this one out. It's really different. But if you like a Gloomhaven type game, I think you still might like this one. It's definitely not going to be as hard to get to the table as a Gloomhaven, though. So that's the thing that I think I liked about it, where Gloomhaven was too much for me to get to the table, unfortunately.
Yeah. Hey, Jamey, I actually had a component question. I've never seen acrylic standees like this. Do you have any thoughts on cost versus minis? This feels like maybe a middle ground between a cardboard standee and a mini. Do you think that would be generally true?
Yeah, I think that, there's the cost factor there. I think this is more cost effective. But I think also, kind of like what Chris said, aesthetically, they stand out. I think miniatures probably would have worked here, but they were going for a very specific art style, and I think it kind of pops because they're able to do the full color for each one. So yeah, I would say I like the choice to do that.
Yeah, and I think more than I actually just unboxed Star Wars Rebellion this weekend that I got for my birthday, and it's cardboard, standees, which it's fine and makes sense again for that. They're using movie stills, right, for a lot of the art. But for something like that, I think that acrylic is really cool. I hadn't seen that particular type of piece before.
Yeah. Well, if anyone's interested, we have a live Q&A and teach that we did, and then we followed up with first scenarios. So we'll be doing more of these, and our goal is to play through all 30 scenarios. It's the first time we're trying to do live playthroughs of like every scenario for something. So it should be fun. It should be a lot of fun. And I encourage people to go check that out. We'll have a good time with it.
Awesome. Yeah, it was great to hear about that. Yeah, I'm glad I got to stick around for a little bit of both your game, or one of each of your games, and I'll have to tune in later to learn about the other ones.
Well, thank you again, Jamey. Appreciate having you. And Brian, at this point, we'll jump over, say goodbye to Jamey. We'll jump over to the next selection. It's actually my selection.
That's good.
And
Thanks,
then we have a combined one for me and you. So
yep.
All right. Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Jamey. See ya.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
So, Brian, this next one, before we go into yours, which is kind of a combination, Espen's excited about this because he knows what it is. This is not one that I think people would have expected. It's been mentioned on this channel, right, Brian? I said just called you Ryan. I'm thinking about
I'm looking at his name there too.
I'm thinking about Ryan, obviously. This one is Lupin Louis. So I have to give some background. Ryan's talked about Lupin Louis like on ends and ends and ends. He loves this game. And I was so excited to actually get to play it finally. Now, I finally got a chance to play it, and the neat thing was I got to share it with my kids. So I do have a little video to share. You see my daughter here. There I am holding my daughter. But just to show you kind of the fun and joy that we had playing this game.
He's coming into our time. Oh,
So we had so much fun with this game. It was a blast. I mean, it felt like a game that was fun for the family. You could bust it out at, with friends over drinks. Like, there's Ryan. Lupin Louis, so good. And it was just a great time. He's talked about it a lot. I mean, this game's not jumping into my top 50 anytime soon, but what a joy. Like, what a joy. Getting to play something, I think, as a dad with my kids is really everything. And this one just seemed to hit on all levels. The kids were so occupied by it too, which is a great thing. Like, it has their attention. It's a game where the Louis flying around trying to take out your chickens. I mean, that's what it is. Louis wants.
That's fantastic. This is brand new to me. I've never seen Lupin Louis, so I appreciate getting to see it. The video definitely, it brought it to life for sure.
The video was necessary. When I recorded, I said I need to do something with this because I didn't grasp what this really was. It's so simple and fun. Now he'll tell you Lupin Chewy is not a replacement, and I kind of understand his logic now because Lupin Chewy is like the Millennium Falcon and it's bigger. So it's easier to, we also played, maybe Ryan can clarify this on a future one, but just to clarify, we played tournament rules style. So
sounds very serious for Lupin Louis.
He has a bunch of copies of it. So they're all collective together. There's like multiple copies and that's how we're able to play with as many people, I guess, but just such a fun game. So I wanted to note
it does not look like a 20-year-old game. It looks like both the art style of the cover, maybe it's been reintroduced or reprinted, but even the game itself looks like something that could be released today as a dexterity game. So that's maybe a testament to its timelessness.
There's a quality to it.
There we go.
It's something. I don't know. It was a pretty fun experience, and I'm mostly laughing because the fact that I brought this to the channel officially before he did. So, there you go.
And I said 20 years. I should have said 30 years ago. I'm doing bad math now.
I know. It is
and aging myself.
It's a 30. It's crazy, right? That's the 2006 cover, by the way. So
yeah,
it's slightly,
okay.
Let's talk though about games on Board Game Arena, because Brian, you brought this up. We've been playing a lot of games on Board Game Arena. It wasn't like we could cover one game, but I guess we're covering Agricola from the start here, because this is a screenshot of one of our games of Agricola. And a big thing I know that you mentioned was you've been doing a lot of learning of new board games using Board Game Arena.
Yeah, so BGA has been a new thing to me this calendar year. So I had an account, but barely ever. I definitely was even kind of anti on it, even during COVID. Right now I'm looking at a screen. I spend my entire day looking at screens, 8 to 10 hours a day or more for my day job. So I've always kind of said I've never really, as an adult, been a PC gamer. I think for that same reason, I don't like I'm at a mouse and keyboard all day. The last thing I want to do in my free time is sit at a mouse and keyboard again. It's kind of my quote, or what I've often said about my gaming experiences. I still do prefer and love cardboard and with people around a table and all that, but those who don't know, Chris and Ryan are in New Jersey on the East Coast. I'm in Seattle. So our ability to play games together is going to be extremely limited, obviously, without some kind of technological tool of some kind. BGA is actually, I have been surprised how much I've gotten into it and enjoyed it. And even more surprised that I've actually learned several games on BGA. So Agricola is probably the maybe meatiest example of a game that you and Ryan have been teaching me over the course of several games. I'm really finally now getting the hang of it and really enjoying it in this particular game.
Didn't you win the last game?
I did win the last game. That is true. Once we introduced occupations and the minor improvements and had that kind of stuff, I've really gotten to enjoy the idea of like trying to come up with a strategy. I think the very first learning game or two we didn't include, it was very basic, and that felt a little harder to me. Agricola is a brutal game. It's definitely you don't get to do very much stuff. It's very tight, right? Your people take your spot and you really just have to wait a while to get to go do that spot again. But I think that's part of the charm. I think there are some worker placement games that are almost a little too easy, like you can kind of always do what you want to do and there's not that same competitive tension. And in this case, I am looking at your boards to see what I think you're going to do next, give me a sense of what I should try or what I'm, so that kind of guessing of where I think you're going to place your workers matters quite a lot. So I think that's pretty interesting. I've learned Castles of Burgundy from Tim at Board Game Hot Takes. He taught me that over a couple rounds. And then you've been teaching me Targi. So I actually got Targi, happened to get a hard copy at my local game store used a couple weeks ago. And that triggered me for us to finally fire up playing Targi on BGA. So that's been a favorite of mine for sure of this last month as well. But just in general, that idea of played a lot of Azul, and we're in a at least four player game right now.
Yep.
Of Azul with a couple more friends of the channel. And so, it's just BJ has been a really surprisingly positive experience for me in getting to play more, learn more games. And then every one of those, I still would prefer to sit down at a table and play the physical copy when the time comes that I.
Well, it's interesting because we've been playing, like you noted, Azul, Targi. Targi is my number 3 this past year. It's not Targi is the one that I always joke is it's nearly perfect on Board Game Arena, but there's no undo, and I have screwed myself over because I went, nope, I didn't mean to do that, and I
just did that 10 minutes before this stream. My last move was not ideal, and I wish I could have gone back.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing I think with Board Game Arena, and I for some reason I had to change a setting, so I can't do a screen share of a Board Game Geek where I'd share some of these games, folks. But you're right, Agricola. I've actually not played the physical version of the game because, as people know, we did it, and as people may know, we did an episode of Change My Mind where Ryan, co-conductor of his channel, tried to change my mind on Caverna. He did change my mind, and I proceeded to then drop the score from my changed score after playing Agricola, which I thought was near perfection compared to Caverna. And so I played it mostly now through Board Game Arena. And so it is a great teaching tool. I think we saw, Jamey was just here with us. I saw Jamey commenting, I think on a thread the other day somewhere about, no, he'd be happy if I forgot what the game was on Board Game Arena. Like, and people realize, I think, that there's tremendous value there to have a game there. It can lead you to buy it. I've been playing. Oh, what was the other one? I wish Martian Dice was still sold like easily. I don't have to go to eBay to get it because I play Martian Dice all the time. Quick little game. I wish I owned it. And so I'm learning this because of Board Game Arena, and it's a really great tool, and it's worth my whatever I pay $20 a year to get the access to everything.
Premium or some of the content. Yeah. Oh, I've used the tutorial a couple of times, actually, both with Agricola and with Castles of Burgundy. They have like somebody kind of goes through a little tutorial with you and has you click on this thing to do that thing. And those vary. I think users do those, and so they kind of vary in quality. But I had really good experiences with both the Agricola and the Castles of Burgundy one. In particular, the Agricola one is fantastic. So I would, and they're a nice kind of intro in. I heard Riley Stock on his podcast this last week that he sometimes will just jump into a game and not even know how to play and just learn by playing. Yep. So I think that's kind of funny. You can do that. I think you can kind of, whatever your learning style is, if you want to watch a video, you can. If you want to get tutorial, kind of, moving your mouse around, you can. If you want to just jump into a real game live and try to learn it that way, that's essentially how I've learned Agricola from you guys, is just kind of fumbling around the first couple games and figuring things out. So that's, really cool. Really, I'm a big fan. And again, if you're not a big fan, I wasn't a big fan 6 months ago either, and didn't think I would ever be playing very many games online. And I definitely changed. Now we are playing async almost entirely. And asynchronous can sometimes be hard for bigger games. I will forget my strategy, and so I'll make mistakes, or I'll have to remember what was I actually trying to do here, because it's been 12 hours or whatever. So that can be an issue. And you can play live. Like, there's a live ability for, if you want to do that. I will play Azul live with random people sometimes, because that's a quick 10, 12-minute play. Sometimes if you're playing with somebody who's pretty snappy, you can really...
It does not take long. You're right. Yeah. I've done that again with Martian Dice, which I mentioned. There's some really good games on there. I would say, if people in the chat now or after the fact comment what your favorite game on Board Game Arena is. And if anyone's interested, I mean, I think it's fair to say I'm always happy to try a new one. I know your game. I know Ryan is. So if you want to play with the Tabletop Express team sometime, let us know. I'm literally just Tabletop Express on Board Game Arena, so you can add me. I'll just add you right back. I'm not really I jump on a game with whomever, but I'm always happy to try a new game, and I think that's the big thing. Again, I think what was it the other day I was playing? It's slipping in my mind. I had to look this up. I'm looking at my profile now. My last game, I've been playing Danielle from the Tabletop Express team in a game called Boomerang USA, and I won 93-92 in the last game. The game before that, I had won by 1 point, and the game before that, she won by 1 point. So incredibly tight game. But I would have never played this game. I would have never had this game on my radar. So that's why I like Board Game Arena. It is not a replacement, like you said, but let's face it, I play a lot more games because of Board Game Arena. So I'm really grateful.
Yeah. I'm going to add one more too. I forgot about Happy City. The four of us, Brian, you, and me, and we all played Happy City together. And that was one where I didn't even look the rules up. I just kind of started clicking on stuff, and it took me about one game to get it. And then I think I maybe skimmed the rules to get a feel. But that one's pretty, I would call almost kind of a Splendor type, right? Where you're collecting stuff, and then the stuff you need to do to generate points. And at some point you got to, there's the turn, like a lot of those games where you got to decide, all right, when do I stop focusing on stuff and start focusing on the points that I need? And so
I think it's interesting because you have a balance of money versus the multipliers that you need. That one's interesting. That one's a really affordable, cheap game that you can get on like your friendly local game store or Amazon really easily. It's not like it's a hard game to get. Well, it's the Game Right end up taking that one over here.
I think it is a Game Right game. Yeah.
It's totally sounds like a Game Right game. So I'm just gonna guess. So I guess we covered more than a few games today.
We did.
But I like it, and I want to just say too, I'm really excited. Just so everybody knows, the next episode of On the Table, we're joined. I'll be joined by Danny Lowe. Danny Lowe is going to be coming on, and Risa is going to be coming on. If you hear me talk about Risa, there's I have a hard time. I keep saying it's less I'm going to say it, but I have a hard time not being excited because we were theater buddies 20 years ago. So two people, two incredible women in the board game industry that I'm just so excited to bring over, both really just fun people. And I'm excited to see what games they come to the table. Sarah's here, by the way, everybody. And Sarah has chimed in. I've been playing Res Arcana with the first expansion, For Sale and PI. And For Sale is another good one on Board Game Arena. If you haven't played it, Brian, it's a lot of fun. I like it in real time. I think it's better in real time. I don't know how it would play asynchronous, but that's really some really good choices in terms of Board Game Arena. And
it's good. It's a good one for me, both with Castles of Burgundy and now looking at Res Arcana. I've had Res Arcana on my shelf for more than a year probably and haven't actually pulled it out. And so I could see BGA being the way for me to get that, actually learn it that way and then get it to my table as well from that. So it can kind of even be yes, it might lead to you buying a game, but it also for me might lead to me actually just getting a game off my shelf of shame and to my table. So
yeah,
really good. Yeah, thanks, Sarah.
And that's a big part. I think Board Game Arena plays for me. It helps me determine something, that I maybe need to just immediately get off the shelf. And Ryan mentioned earlier, I think I saw that he ended up buying Yokohama because of Board Game Arena. I did the same. And, but I thank Sarah for chiming in on that one. I know this is a weird time. We normally do these at night. So I think I threw people for a loop on this one. But we really did want to work with Jamey's schedule on this one. We booked this a few weeks back, and easier to work with Jamey on a 9 to 5 schedule. So I wanted to do that. I want to also say, obviously thank you to Jamey for coming on. We certainly appreciate that. We know everybody's time is, it's just that everyone's really busy these days. And, so thank you to Jamey for joining us this evening. If there's anyone you would like to see here on the table, we're booked pretty well through into the summer at this point. But as I'm looking ahead to fall, I'm really open to if you're someone you think would be great on here, let us know. I know we're always looking just for people who want to come on and talk board games. That's all it is. We're here to talk about games that we've played, why we liked them, or maybe why we even didn't like something. I mean, it's really just about the fact that we're here playing games and having a good time with friends, family. So anything else before we go, Brian? Anything on your radar?
I would just plug one thing. About a week and a half ago, I had my kind of primary flagship article, Colorblind Gaming 101, was republished on Board Game Geek. It was kind of on the front page for a while, got tons of responses. I still need to go back. I just noticed I had another indicator that there's another comment, but like literally hundreds of people have looked at it, and it's been fantastic. Really, really good discussions about accessibility in gaming, particularly related to color vision, which is what the article is about, but even broader than that. So I would encourage folks checking that out, or just go to my site, colorblindgames.com. that has the exact same article with, from my side as well. And then other reviews. We talked about Viticulture World today. Viticulture is actually the last game that I did an accessibility review and modified myself. That one has some major color issues that I still struggle with. And so I actually pulled out my Sharpie and made some changes to my copy so that I could play it more easily. And that's going to help me with Viticulture World. Kind of weird. I worked on a game as a proofreader that is not colorblind friendly. So that's kind of an odd aspect of the industry as well. Of course, it was an expansion of an existing game. And so the ability to make major changes was limited. But still, something I think is important is to continue to be looking at how we can make games more accessible, and a lot of good discussion on that Board Game Geek thread from my article there. So anybody who's interested in that, I'd encourage you to take a look at that as well.
Yeah, and congratulations. I saw that it was actually there just the other day when I looked, and just quick comment, Sarah did mention earlier, because I don't want to ignore this, that Sarah said, I learned Res Arcana with BG, a great explanation of what each card does. So probably will be super helpful for you as well. Again, if you've played any game in this past month and you just want to talk about it, come on back next month. Will be, I believe it's May 26th. I'll double check that, but we're going to be back here with Danny and Risa. That's going to be a ton of fun. And then into the summer with more of these great conversations. Also, just so people know, Ryan is going to, and we'll confirm date, but Ryan, who who did the last on the table as a call-in show, is going to actually be bringing a call-in show to the channel officially. I believe we were calling it Call Aboard. I don't know if that was official.
like
It seemed really appropriate, and we're both dads, and I'm pretty sure when I suggested that, it was accepted. So Ryan can confirm if that's the final name or not, but yep, Call Aboard. There it is.
There it is. All caps.
All caps, Call Aboard. So be on the lookout for that. That was a ton of fun, but we need you to make that possible. On that note, everybody, I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. And he's saying he's cringing so much, but it's perfect. We hope you're enjoying the channel. If there's something you'd like to see, reach out to us. We're Tabletop Express or the Tabletop Express on the TT Express on Twitter. And we're looking forward to bringing more and more videos, some creators corners coming on the way to announce soon. Have a great afternoon, everyone. To Brian, thank you as always for being here. And to everyone else who attended, thanks for joining us and coming aboard the Tabletop Express. Have a great afternoon.